Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole, and I'm the parent support worker for the Niagara Catholic District School Board Early On Child and Family Centers. Today, we are going to be highlighting the key points from Chapter 9, called Well-Being and Anxiety, from Dr. Jean Clinton's book, Love Builds Brains. I thought being outside for today's session would sort of remind everyone listening of the importance of nature for our well-being, and perhaps the sounds of the birds and the nature will help bring you a sense of calm as we discuss this heavy topic of anxiety. So in the beginning of this chapter, Dr. Jean urges us to understand the meaning of mental health. Specifically, she tells us that mental health is not merely the absence of disease. Meaning, just because we don't have a diagnosed mental health disorder does not mean that we have good mental health. Mental health requires balance in all parts of our lives, and this chapter is going to consider the mental health of youth. So if you'd recall from a previous chapter, there is a stigma surrounding child mental health, and Dr. Jean demonstrates this through research that shows that anxiety disorders have actually gone up from 9 to 13% in the past 3 decades, but the perception of having anxiety has actually tripled. So our view of children has to encompass this possibility of struggle so that we can focus on creating positive mental health right from the start, right from the early years. So one of the wonderful strategies for ensuring our kids' mental health and well-being offered by Dr. Jean is what she calls lending your calm, which is what I hope I do today by being outside in nature, is to lend you my calm. So in order to help children stay calm, we have to learn to find calmness within ourselves as well. So Dr. Jean outlines 5 core elements of well-being and happiness as discovered by Martin Seligman. So he says to have psychological well-being and happiness, we need to have all 5 of the following elements, which is called PERMA. So number 1, the P, is positive emotions, feeling good, having gratitude, which we know through research has an actual positive effect on our mood and mental health. Number 2, the E, is engagement, so finding flow or having an outlet that completely absorbs you and perhaps makes time pass without you even realizing it. Number 3 is relationship, so authentic connections. This has been a continuous message offered by Dr. Jean. Do you have people in your life that make you feel felt, that truly, truly understand and love you for who you are? Number 4, the M, is meaning, so purposeful existence, something that gets you out of bed every single morning. And then the last is A, for achievement, a sense of accomplishment, doing something for yourself or something for others that makes you feel good. I encourage you to look at your own life and be sure that you have a sense of each of these 5 elements. Engagement being especially hard during a pandemic, I really urge you to find a way to feel connected during these times. Even if that means commenting on this post and asking for advice or help, or to share a story that's special to you. And when you feel confident with your sense of well-being, I encourage you to extend that embodiment towards your kids by lending your calm. But what you need to realize is that we're not sort of balancing on a teeter-totter with mental health issues on one side and well-being on the other, where only one can be at the top. It's not like one person has mental health issues and another person doesn't. We need to view mental health as a continuum on which we all find ourselves. Just because we experience anxiety or depression doesn't mean we can't have a well-lived life. And this is a really important piece to remember, not only for ourselves, but for our kids too. So Dr. Jean then focuses on the experience of anxiety. She explains the difference between feeling anxious and having an anxiety disorder. So feeling anxious is pretty normal. We might feel anxious before a test or before a doctor's appointment. As an example, Dr. Jean shared a story of anxious, prone thoughts in her once 3-year-old son. He was worried about swimming because, maybe the lifeguard forgot to tell him one of the rules. At the time, she felt defeated by this and wondered what she did wrong as a parent. But soon she realized just how ordinary these worries were. They might be present because of a child's temperament, because of their experiences, because they're generally just trying to figure out the world, or it could be the result of both imagined and real circumstances. In fact, Dr. Jean shares a common definition of anxiety as the apprehension or excessive fear a person experiences about real or imagined circumstances. It's essential that we help children understand that anxiety is normal, especially when triggered by a typical circumstance like a first date, a school speech, or even being afraid of bugs. These sorts of things turn on a person's stress system. And that is what leads to those feelings of apprehension, edginess, and maybe even nausea for some of us. When we experience this with what Dr. Jean refers to as normal anxiety, it typically doesn't stick. The feelings tend to go away. What's necessary to consider, though, as Dr. Jean explained, is whether or not that anxiety that you're feeling in that moment is interfering with other aspects of our lives, whether the feeling doesn't eventually go away. This is what differs a typical anxious response and an anxiety disorder. Now, you shouldn't take this knowledge and start assessing whether or not your kid's anxious tendencies extend past the anxious trigger. It's not your job to attempt to diagnose your child. The purpose of explaining this is to ease the fear a parent might feel when they notice their child is experiencing that transient anxiety, that anxiety that goes away. What your role should be is to continue teaching your kids about their emotions. Help them understand that sometimes things outside of us, like spiders, can cause an uproar of icky feelings on the inside of us. We might get sweaty when we see a spider. We might get a little bit dizzy. After you spin around and around and around and around and you find it hard to stand up. Can explain how this sort of feels to our kids. And alongside teaching your kids about the connection between their body and their mind, you need to offer them strategies to deal with and recover from this transient anxiety. The anxiety we know will go away shortly after the spider is removed. So when we assess for the anxiety trigger that influences the stress response, Dr. Jean described the approach of Sonia Lupien, who uses the acronym NUTS to identify that a stress system is activated in a situation that is novel, so maybe it's something new that the child is experiencing, unpredictable, so there's no way of knowing whether it might occur or what might happen. If it poses a threat to the ego, so feeling like your competence or ability is in question, and then a sense of control, so feeling like you have little to no control in a situation. And as she says, stress is nuts under these conditions. I quote Dr. Gina, she says, when you think of situations in which kids are having meltdowns, having difficult and demonstrating difficult or challenging behavior, one important response to ask is what makes this situation nuts for them. Because children who experience too much stress can become anxious. So your first plan of action is to acknowledge that kids can experience distress and acknowledge when it's present for your kid. It doesn't mean that you failed as a parent. So you can let that worry go. The second thing you're going to do is be sure to validate that distress. So don't brush it off and assure them that they are okay. As Dr. Jean says, share with your child that you've noticed something, but also try not to pressure them to talk about what it is that's causing them distress. Within this, be sure to talk to your children about stress and about anxiety when they feel comfortable to do so. Help them realize how these things can cause physical sensations in our bodies, like tummy aches or headaches. Help them realize that, when their heart is racing, they really need to slow down and take some deep breaths. It's important that they begin to understand that thought, feeling, and action are all linked together, and they have the power to exchange anxious thoughts with coping thoughts. And once they understand this, you can work together to find the stressors and alleviate or cope with them. Maybe you utilize breathing techniques. Maybe you create a chill zone where kids can decompress and unwind after school. And then lastly, remember to lend your calm. Model your own healthy coping strategies. I'm going to attach some resources that Dr. Jean offers her readers as being helpful. So please take a look at those if you're needing more support. And do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have a question or need support. I want to wrap up with a very accurate depiction of anxious feelings as described by a young boy with autism. Within her book, Dr. Jean shares that he said it was like his worries and anxieties were like having a mountain of worms in his tummy, and that he couldn't climb up to get them quieted. I hope that you have gained something from today's summary. I hope you take a moment to go outside, feel your own calm, and then lend it to your child's. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon.